Hi, everybody. Welcome to Radio 815, the podcast dedicated to examining the works of writer, director, producer J.J. Abrams and his extended Bad Robot universe. I'm Matt Crandall, here with my co-host Marcelo Inostroza, as we get closer to the end of our prison journey, metaphorical and literal, as we are talking about Alcatraz, Season 1, Episode 10, entitled Clarence Montgomery. So we are in the home stretch of Alcatraz because this was a short-lived show. We are now on the 10th episode, and this begins in very similar Alcatraz fashion, where we catch up with one of the 63s. Now, we catch up first in present day, and we are following this guy at a bar at a golf course. He's drinking, he's kind of schmoozing this woman, and it is two-time Academy Award winner Mahershala Ali playing the title character, the titular role of this episode, Clarence. And we see him, he goes out with this girl to the golf course. They're about to maybe have some sort of romance thing, and he's like, I got the house. She's looking at him, she's like, the fuck are you talking about, dude? And we're thinking, okay, what's going on here? And he has some weird flashes in his mind of guilty and blood spatter, and then we see him running with her throat slit, and he's carrying her laser down at the 13th green or whatever it is. And then we go back to Alcatraz days. Now we flash back and we see he's locked up for the murder of a woman at a golf course. So at first I was like, are they playing with time in some way? And then of course, no, we find out that this is basically a repeat of the crime that put him in Alcatraz. And one of the through lines throughout all the flashbacks is going to be, did he actually commit the first murder that got him locked up in Alcatraz? Because we know when he comes back to the future, he certainly does commit that murder. And we have to figure out why. Because everything that we flash back to early on, we find out that Clarence Montgomery claims that he is innocent, and he is also a cook. And we see the warden of Alcatraz say, come over here, my boy. I gotta get you to taste this sauce. And Clarence says, great sauce, boss. Way to go. And the guy's like, no, give me your honest opinion. Try it again. And he says, okay, you need more butter and you need this, you need that. And the warden says, great, you're gonna cook dinner tomorrow for everyone. And of course, because this is a flashback to the 60s, Clarence says, they're not going to eat it if I cook it, because a lot of these white people will not eat food that someone other than them prepared. So we're going to be tackling some race issues as this episode goes on. A few of the mysteries, wondering why Clarence maybe didn't do the murder that got him into Alcatraz and why he is murdering in the present. And in the previously on, we got refreshers about Dr. Banerjee talking to Leon Rippey's character about the blood and what's going on at Alcatraz. So we know that that's probably going to come back in this episode. But early on, we don't really change the dynamics that I've been whining about. Luckily, there are a few more scenes with Soto and Madsen and the coroner, but it doesn't really go anywhere. None of it adds up to much. There are fun little scenes here and there, but again, by the time this was all over, I was like, even though it's Mahershala Ali and I like him, I was like, too much Mahershala, too much of his friend in the future, and not enough of these characters interacting. How did you feel about this episode, Marcelo, that I know you've definitely seen more than once inadvertently recently?
I really, really appreciated what the writers were trying to do with this episode. Basically, asking the question, did our 63 really commit the murder that he went to prison for? But I think that the reason why I like this episode so much is because of the two-time Academy Award winner Mahershala Ali. His performance in this episode was really quiet and really understated. The other thing that I enjoyed immensely about this episode was the racial tension boiling over Mahershala Ali and all the people in his world. I will agree with you that despite me liking all those story points, I hate the fact that in last week's episode we basically got set up to finally dive into the grander story that the show was going to tell, and this week it it almost feels like we took 2 steps forward and 1 step back, because I thought that we were going to deal with the grander story of Alcatraz this week, with how the prisoners got to present day. What was the blood? What was the thing with the blood? And yet we 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 we, we just got another prisoner of the week with hints of the grander story in the third act. Like, I'm really fucking frustrated. Like, it's driving me up a wall how fucking frustrated I'm getting. And spending more time with Rebecca and Soto is cool, but it's just not coming together.
The small character moments that I want more of is like when Soto gets asked out on a date by the coroner and he's like, "Whoa, wait, what? Are you talking to me?" And then I'm like, well, I want to see more of like the date. Like, let me see when they go for drinks. Let me see this stuff. But like, we're not getting more than just like a tossed off line that makes it seem like they have exterior lives going on as the same time as this Alcatraz shit. And like, I'd be more interested to divert into like, what does Soto do on a Friday night after they have already wrapped up the case, right? Like, let me see that. Because I just feel like we got Jorge Garcia. Why are we not using this fucking guy? Why are we not seeing like they wrap this up, everybody's chilling. Let me see Hauser kick off his shoes and have a beer at the end of the day. And then like, what does he do in his free time, right? When he's not doing this, because for the show to have been able to sustain, they needed to give us that, because these feel like characters that don't have any exterior life, which makes them feel so thin, so hollow, because they literally only exist to capture the 63 of the week, and then like nothing else. And it's just, I give shows some grace to find their footing. 10 episodes in, they still didn't find it, and it became apparent that they probably never would. And that's too bad. But that being said, like, Mahershala is really good. So I do think, he always has that strong, quiet, reserved thing, but you can tell like there's a lot more going on behind the eyes, and that's kind of like the magic of Mahershala. And he's, was doing a lot of TV before he really, he was around, but like when Moonlight came out, it was like, holy shit, this is the guy, right? This is one of the guys. And then he was able to keep the train rolling with, cringe alert Green Book, which like did use him in a very effective way. And now like when he is in a movie, you're like, oh, there are people who will go see a movie because Mahershala Ali is one of the leads, right? So you can see that here because he is captivating. The only problem is the story is not. So like the whole time when they're investigating and they're like, the killer in the 60s was left-handed, but this is a right-handed kill. I'm like, well, within 10 minutes of this, I already knew that he was innocent the first time. They did something to him in Alcatraz that made him do murders this time and like black out during them. So then when we see that it's like some Clockwork Orange bullshit with, our science dude, putting his eyes open and making him watch murder videos of the crime scene and all this stuff. I'm like, okay, guys, but why? Like, what was the purpose of doing that to Clarence Montgomery in the grander scheme of whatever is happening with the 63s coming back? And we still don't know. Like, why did they do that to him? Especially because they really dropped that thread that early on, the 63s were killing people who had like these weird keys that they could round up. And as far as I could tell, golf course chick did not have any special magic key. Did I miss that? Or like, is that a thread that we have completely dropped?
I think that's a thread that we completely dropped. But as you were talking there and you said, why did the writers show us Mahershala Ali basically getting brainwashed and getting electrocuted? Earlier on in the season, you would have 63s that came back for the keys, but you would also have 63s that came back and had no grander connection to the plot. And I was thinking maybe those criminals who had no grander tie to the plot other than coming back in a world that they didn't know and chasing the ancestors of their victims, maybe those people were subjected to the same kind of medical fuckery that Mahershala's character was given by the fucking crazy doctor in Alcatraz, subjected to by the fucking crazy doctor in Alcatraz.
I think you're right that like that is what is implied. The only problem with that is that those other guys, everything they were doing was like revenge based. Like they felt wronged by someone, or they were actually like getting back into their old murderous habits. So like it made sense that they were on a revenge mission and they did a murder that wasn't actually like their main mission, or they just picked up where they left off and maybe that was why they were brought back, was to cause the chaos. But I'm like, this was an innocent man. Why did they turn him into a murderer to then bring him back if his murders were just going to be random and senseless? Other shows we wouldn't need this, but like, I'm like, well, this is a bad robot show. There has to be a bigger reason that will hopefully be revealed.
Right. And Mahershala's character should have come back in search for one of the keys. Like Matt said just a couple minutes ago, that aspect of the show has been completely washed away. Like the one thing that I thought when the evil doctor was electrocuting him to make him black out and to make him sort of into basically sort of make him into a weapon is Watchmen. Yeah. Like but in this episode that action serves no purpose, and it was just really a shame to see that. The other thing that the scene that I really liked in this really sucky fucking episode is a scene when Mahershala Ali is getting his beard shaved and all shaped up like the day before he's going to cook for the entire prison. The fucking assistant warden shows up and basically says, no matter it doesn't matter if you cook for the whole prison, the way that society feels about you is not going to change. I really like that line because Mahershala's friend, who we meet in present day, who's in a wheelchair, will come back later on, he keeps believing that this is a big step for people of color, that being the first black prisoner in Alcatraz, serving the whole prison, including white people, means something. But in the end, it means nothing. So I did like the political undertones of this episode a lot, but it just didn't amount to anything because these writers never fucking fixed the grander problem of the show, giving us less of the prisoners and giving us more of Manson and Soto and the grander mystery of Alcatraz. And I would love to address a point that you brought up earlier on. These characters that we know and love so much are really paper thin because we don't see them beyond work. This show needed a story plot like We Got in Fridge, Olivia taking care of her little sister, Peter taking care of Walter. It would have been amazing to see Soto go out on a date with the corner chick that asked him out on a date in this episode. It would have been amazing to see Hauser take off his shoes and dance to an old 50s record in his house.
Let's just see him chill out and have a few small beers. You know what I mean? So like, yeah. That's the stuff that I'm wanting. You are right that like they did try and tackle like this race issue. It's admirable, but for a show like this, it's like, come on, guys, nobody is here for a history lesson, and I don't think you're going to be able to like make a dent. But I did really like the dynamic between Clarence and his buddy, played by Glenn Turman. So like, I like that, but there's some really bad writing moments in this episode that like are shockingly bad. So like they go and they show up. We see first Clarence comes to his buddy in the present, and his buddy's like, "Holy shit, I thought you were dead. They told me you went to that prison and got killed." He's like, "Nah, man." He's like, "You look the same, dude. Like, what's happening here?" And his buddy always believed that Clarence was innocent, which is nice. And so like obviously Clarence is hiding out there. The team goes to this guy's place to like talk to him to find out, what's going on. Nothing kind of comes of it. But then later, when they track down Clarence and they find Clarence working in a kitchen, just makes Madsen look completely incompetent when they round the corner to the kitchen and she pulls her gun and she's like, "Freeze, motherfucker!" And he just bolts. And it's like, well, of course he's gonna bolt. Like, you guys needed to play this cooler because you could have got much closer to Clarence because he didn't even know who you were, that you were looking for him. So, funnily enough, it was like police work. Mahershala used to be on a show called The 4400, and that show drove me so fucking crazy because the lead, Tom Baldwin, this dude who worked for this place called NTAC, whenever he would go to track down a member of the 4400, he would always, for no reason, kick in a door and yell, "NTAC is here," and then everybody would bolt. And like every time I watched that show, I'm like, if he just didn't announce that NTAC had arrived on scene, they could have captured like 5 of the 4400 and we wouldn't have had like this big stupid chase. And so I was like, man, these guys must have watched that show, fell in love with Mahershala, brought him over to here, and then adopted the stupid cop tactics from that show for this. Clarence bolts, and they're like, "Oh, we know that he..." This was the most ridiculous part. "We know that he needs penicillin. He has to have penicillin or he's gonna die. Do a quick search on the computer and tell me everybody in town who got a prescription for penicillin this week or like right now." And they're like, boop, boop, beep. 12 people got penicillin this week. I'm like, motherfucker, 12 people got penicillin this minute in this town, I'm sure. Like, they're in like a big city. There's no way, only 12 people got penicillin all week and they could just look it up. That's fucking insane. And then they're like, "Oh, and one of the guys who got penicillin is the guy we visited yesterday, Clarence Montgomery's best friend. I guess he's hanging out there." Well, no shit, Sherlock. Of course that's where he's hanging out. And then they go and there is the big shootout scene where the friend doesn't believe, and they say, "Look, Clarence was innocent, but now he's a murderer." And Clarence even says, "Yeah, sorry, dude, I was innocent. Now I'm a murderer. Please help me, set me free." And as soon as Clarence says these words, I'm like, okay, well, his buddy's going to gun him down. He's going to set him free in like the literal sense rather than, helping him out. And that is what happens. How did you feel about that whole sequence of events? Because as I've said, I was just like, I can suspend disbelief a lot, especially in a show about time traveling inmates. But I was just like, why didn't you tell me that like 300 people got a prescription for penicillin and then just have them look through the list a little bit longer? But 12? That's insane. Penicillin's one of the like most prescribed drugs in the world.
I actually similarly was like, okay, the way that you're going to track down the baddie of the week is by doing a simple computer search and saying, oh, only 12 people in the entire town of San Francisco got penicillin, and one of those 12 people turned out to be the best friend of the person you're chasing. I found it to be very, very thin and very, very lazy. Listen, regardless of how awful the dialogue was, when Rebecca, Soto, and Hauser basically had Clarence and his best friend cornered, I really felt for Clarence as he sat in the room, basically pondering the rest of his life. Again, Mahershala Ali did a fantastic job, but the show that he was a part of gave him lackluster writing, and I think he did the best he could with what he was given. And the fact that his best friend set him free, shooting him, and then ending his character on the show, I thought was very poetic. The other thing that I found very interesting is that he ended up having a disease that would have been treatable in present day, called Wilson's disease, and and that's treatable with some pills, and guess what, penicillin. I go back to the other thing that we brought up a couple minutes ago. Why in the fuck did the warden and the crazy fucking doctor in Alcatraz find the need to turn a innocent man into a killer? For what?
We don't know, and maybe we are going to find out in the grand scheme, like what is actually going on with the blood, the inmates that they are selecting, the weird Clockwork Orange videos they're making them watch. Like we are now adding up so many things that we are not explaining, that I hope they find a way to explain some of it. And expectations being what they are, when this episode started and I saw that it was directed by Jack Bender, who is like one of the A-list Bad Robot directors, like one of the big episode Lost guys, right? Like when it was a big episode, it was like a Jack Bender. So when this started and I'm like, Mahershala's here, directed by Jack Bender, I'm like, we're going to get some fucking answers here. Hell yeah. And then we didn't. It was just another typical Alcatraz villain of the week taking up too much of our time. And I was like, like, I'm really surprised. I was really surprised. That was my own issue, because as soon as I saw his name, I was like, we got Jack in here again, and we got to be doing a big one. And maybe it was just, we got Jack in here to warm up so that when we use him later in the season, hopefully it is a big one. And I hope that maybe it just happened to be like he had to direct 2 episodes at once and this was the lesser, because again, it is my own fault that my expectations are hoping that we are going to get more answers, and they are going to realize that mystery box shows, if you drag out the mystery without even showing us a little bit of what's inside the box, at a certain point, we're just going to go, you're never going to open the box. Fuck you. I'm done. Whereas like that was, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Like the brilliance of Lost always was they knew when to give you certain information. And yes, most of those answers had 7 more questions attached to them, right? But they answered something that had been previously set up. So you always felt like, okay, there is more mystery here, but they've revealed enough that I feel like I'm in capable hands where I can relax and realize they're not stringing me along. And everything on this show, like they dropped the keys. And for a while, it seemed like every episode we were going to end in Hauser's super secret prison with all of the inmates. And like we were going to like be interrogating them more to find out what's going on. But like they dropped that too. We haven't been back in that set in like 4 or 5 episodes now. And I'm like, why did they drop the stuff that seemingly was the more intriguing aspects of the mystery? And like that stuff has just been jettisoned. So I'm interested to see in the final 3 how much of that we bring in and wrap our arms around before we go out.
I was very, very optimistic when I saw Jack Bender pop up as director of this episode. I didn't get as excited as you got, but but my pulse went up just a little bit. But I was sorely disappointed for all the reasons that I previously mentioned in this episode. But you make up a great point. Not only the Keys plot line was jettisoned, but the people that Hauser has working for him in Alcatraz disappeared, right? The psychologist that was essentially is essentially a time trapper from 63, is still in a coma in present day. She has a wonderful scene with Mahershala in this episode talking to him about how she can really help him and she can make his disease of killing go away. But that didn't go anywhere. When she popped up, I thought that her storyline was going to get some resolution in present day, but that didn't happen. You bring up such a great point with the way that Lost gave us just a bit of the mystery box every episode. They gave us enough of an answer to keep us interested and to keep us going on with the story. But this episode does not know how to use the JJ Bad Robot mystery box correctly. And it's just so disappointing.
Me as well, but we'll have to see. We are, like I said, in the home stretch. Next week, we are going to be talking about episode 11, entitled Web Porter, which is actually directed by Jack Bender again. And just taking a quick look at IMDb, he co-directed the finale. So, like, I think this was bringing him back into the fray to, like, get his sea legs under him before this final batch. So if you are watching along, that is the homework for next week, episode 11 of a 13 episode show. So very close to locking the gates on this one. If you guys like the show, please like, follow, subscribe, rate, tell your friends. We are available anywhere you get podcasts. We're available on YouTube in audio form. Marcelo takes care of the social media. So if you want to reach out, drop a line to him. Any comments or feedback we get, we will share on the show. If you want to get in touch with me directly, you can't, except for letterboxd.com. My username is MDC3000. We can log some movies and talk about, awards bait and all that stuff that's coming up. If you want to get in touch with Marcelo, let the people know how to do that.
Yeah, the best place to get in touch with me is on X. I'm at FreakFanatic88. If you go on my X profile, you can see a link to my link tree.
And we'll be back next week talking about more Alcatraz. Aren't you thrilled? Until next time, Radio 815, over and out.
Radio 815 is a Balloonhead Productions presentation in association with Killer Newt Productions.